Alright, good morning, 6th graders. Today is our last math lesson in 6th grade. Everyone give me a fist pound. Bam. Finally coming to an end in our 6th grade math. And today we're learning about sensible metric measures. You guys know what sensible means? Sensible means like it makes sense. So we can kind of read it and it makes sense when we read it. So let's read our first paragraph and see if what Karen wrote Ashley, see if it makes sense. She said, I walk 1.5 meters to school every day. Karen wrote to her pen pal Ashley. When Ashley read the sentence, she laughed. Karen had obviously made a mistake. Ashley knew Karen did not live next to the school, so she knew that she couldn't have only walked 1.5 meters, because remember, 1.5 meters is only a little bit longer than a yard, so that's like 2 steps and you're at school. Would you like that? Probably not. So she realized that she probably meant 1.5 kilometers, all right? So we can sometimes we have to change our actual unit of measurement to make it make sense, because sometimes people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So we have to be able to read our measurement and determine whether that makes sense or not, all right? Let's read our next paragraph. The 6th grade students measure their heights in centimeters at the beginning of the year. John wrote down his height as 13.7 centimeters. That's not very tall for being in 6th grade. That's about this tall. That's a really short 6th grader. So obviously he made a mistake. By erasing his decimal point, his height of 137 centimeters sounded a lot more reasonable. So he made the mistake of writing that. So if we just erased our decimal point, 137 centimeters makes a lot more sense of the height that a 6th grader would be, all right? Let's read our last paragraph. It says, when working with the metric measures, make sure your unit of measure is reasonable, and that your decimal point is placed in the correct spot to make sure your answer is reasonable, all right? So I'm gonna read a couple sentences and I want you guys to tell me whether they make sense or not. If they make sense, say yes, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then I want you to tell me what is wrong with it, all right? So what if I'd say the book was 22 kilometers wide? Does that make sense? A book being 22 kilometers wide? That is a ginormous book, all right? So remember, kilometers are a little bit longer than a mile. So 22 kilometers wide for a book is not reasonable. So what could we change? What mistake could we have made in that sentence? What could we change our unit of measurement? Instead of kilometers, what could we change it to that would make a little more sense in the metric system? We could probably change it to centimeters. That would make sense. 22 centimeters for the width of a book is probably about reasonable. Yeah, that makes sense, right? All right, let's do another one. If I would say, Mom gave the baby 5 liters of medicine. Would that make sense? We would say 5 liters of medicine. Probably not. That's a lot of medicine. It probably would not be healthy for a baby. So instead of 5 liters, she probably just wrote the wrong term. So it's probably going to be milliliters. She probably gave her 5 milliliters. What about the next one? Dad bought a 2 milliliter bottle of soda for the picnic. Would that make sense? 2 milliliters of pop for the picnic. Probably not. Remember, milliliter is not a lot. It's really small. And so we probably have to switch our unit of measurement to a liter. Did your mom ever bought a 2 liter of pop? She probably has, all right? So this would be probably the more sensible measurement, all right? So for your new part today, 1 through 8, it says the measures in bold are not sensible, so there's something wrong with them. You need to correct each one by either changing the unit of measure or moving the decimal point. Write the correction on the blank. All right, so that's all you're doing for your new part. And I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you later.